Hey guys, welcome again to another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast with me, Jerry D. I have no doubt that by this week's guest, this week's episode, you will be blessed, refreshed, and encouraged in your journey of faith. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And also remember that hope is to life as oxygen is to the body. Remember, don't forget to enjoy the show. Hey guys, and welcome again to another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast with me, Jerry D. This week's guest is someone who actually knows me the longest. She carried me in her womb. So let's just say our connection is quite strong. It goes from before birth to even now, 26 years later. It's my wonderful mom. To you, she's called Susan. To me, she's called Mom. Mom, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good, thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Mom, we're going to jump straight into it. I know you've listened to the previous episodes, a rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Brilliant. Your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood. Oh my goodness, that's many years ago now. I guess it would be dancing.
Dancing?
Dancing.
What, like?
Ballroom dancing.
Oh, right. Are you a morning or a night person?
Oh, definitely night.
Yeah. Is there a reason why that is, Mom? Like, do you prefer just having time to yourself at night, or?
Yes, just completely chilling out by myself.
Yeah, good stuff.
And just being nice, calm, and relaxed.
Yeah. And for the next question, I have to ask you. You have to give me an answer, because God is watching. Okay. Your favorite child?
Joshua.
Oh no, ma'am. He's your grandchild. Your favorite child?
I have 4 favorite children. They're all the same.
Ah, yeah. You're supposed to say that. It's such a generic response, you know. What has been your favorite holiday that you've been on so far, man?
Sorry?
What has been your favorite holiday that you've been on so far?
My favorite holiday?
Yeah.
I guess would have been. I'd enjoy. We've had holidays when you guys were all small, going to Haven in London, in England, and in Clacton. We've had holidays in Ireland and Tramore. But I think the most special was our trip to Lanzarote a few years back.
Yeah.
It was great to be able to enjoy a holiday and do things, and it was just, yeah, it was great. The only thing was missing was Danny, Aoife, and Joshua, but that was my favorite family holiday, as into being able to do different things with each other and just be able to chill and just special family time.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe in the next year or two, there might be a possibility of us all going on a holiday.
Oh, absolutely.
Family, you know. Yeah. So, Mom, and the last one for the rapid fire round is this, right? So you're not just a mom, you're now a nanny, right? And what's your favorite thing about being a nanny?
Oh my goodness, just everything about being a nanny. It's just a difference in that difference, love, that just everything about being a nanny. Joshua walks into our house and he just melts my heart. My heart is so full of love for him. It's just an amazing feeling being a nanny. The best feeling I've ever known.
Wow. Yeah. And I love the fact that he has everyone wrapped around his fingers. As in, like, if he puts his hand out. Huh?
I missed that bit, sorry.
You're okay. So I love the fact that when he comes into the house, like, if he puts his hand out to you, he's not asking you, he's actually telling you to come. You know, it's like, it's funny.
Go to his little cupboard where he has these little treats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know. Yeah, that's the rapid fire round, ma'am. What I want to do now is it's a special segment, because this is a very special episode, right? You're my mom, which means you know me better than anyone else. You actually probably know me better than I know myself. You know, I don't have. You know if I'm okay or if I'm refusing to tell you something or whatever. But there's a couple of stories that I think are worth remembering. Okay, And the first one is, right, so a lot of people know my story. They know, a lot of people will know Danny's story and how his story is part of our story and how the gospel came to our family. But even before I was a Christian, a lot of people may not know this, but I was a really good stealer. You know, like I could go downtown and rob food, clothes, anything really. And
You were good until the day your mommy and daddy caught you.
yeah, you basically just stole my limelight there. So yeah, everything was going well. I was able to go into sports shops, game shops, get DVDs, games for the PlayStation. And it was just this one Friday, I'll never forget it. I went into lifestyle sports, and I'll never forget the clothing item either. It was the rugby brand. They're called Canterbury. You know, they do the skin tight body warmers. So I went in there anyway, and the lad said to me, "Go in there and get us a body warmer. We need it for the football." I said, "Man, I'll go in there and get a couple." So, and I went in, and they were all in boxes, you know. And I took them out of the box and I put them under my school jumper, and I probably took about 4 or 5 of them. And as I came out, I was like, great, I got past the tagging system. And as I went to turn left to go down the alleyway, from the corner of my eye, I seen you and Dad walking literally just towards me. And I didn't even say hello. I looked at you and I just turned left and I ran down to the bottom of the alley to tell the lads here's the stuff, and I offloaded it. And I ran back up to the top of the alley to you. And you were like, yo, you stupid idiot. What are you doing? You're robbing, you're robbing, you're robbing. And I remember that day for me probably being one of the darkest days of my life. You know, you grounded me.
Yeah, I remember because we were walking up the high street and you came out of lifestyle and it was the guilty face you had because you kind of turned your head.
Yeah.
And straight away I knew you were at something.
Yeah.
And when you ran down that alleyway, I said to your dad, he's up to no good.
Yeah.
And right enough. Yeah. Boom.
I'm thinking of it now, right? You took it a lot worse than Dad did. I think it's probably the fair way to say it. He kind of was like, "Oh, you stupid idiot, you shouldn't be doing that." But you were like, you were very upset. You were very angry for a longer period of time.
I was because I guess I was after going through stuff like that with Danny, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
And I had dealt with that, a lot of that stealing and stuff when Danny in the past, and and to think that you were doing it as well. So I was really vexed. I was really,
Yeah.
I was hurt and I was upset and so cross, so cross. Like.
Yeah. That's interesting because I actually never, until now, I never thought of that how you viewed it compared to Dad, because obviously you knew, whether we like it or not, moms know everything, dads don't know a lot. They like
absolutely, I agree.
Even we're joking.
I'm better than any FBI. Mums are better than any FBI agents, let me tell you.
Absolutely. And it's funny because even at Christmas time, we always joke, you know, when Sandy comes to our house, Dad doesn't have a notion of what you got him. He's just like, yeah, we shopped it the other day. And you're like, no, you didn't. You stayed at home. And I went down and done it all, you know. But even another story that I think is so worth telling, it was Danny. So we know what it's like firsthand to have a family member who is wrapped up into the lifestyle of drugs, drink, stealing, guards coming to our house. Even Dad was seeing very physical threats at times when drug dealers would come to the door looking for money or looking for Danny, and you had to pay up a lot of the times. And a lot of times, like I remember one time Dad's car got damaged because you'd no money to give the drug dealers, and I'm pretty sure one time he got knocked to the floor. There was some sort of a fight or something that broke out at one point, I think. Yeah. And then I remember one point, I'm pretty sure you were held at knife point. It was whatever way it was.
Yeah, I had a blade held up here to me, and if I had it turned, it would have went into me.
Wow, that's crazy. You know, it's even to think of it now. I actually love the fact that I can share this story, particularly because it's the goodness and the faithfulness and the kindness of God that He has redeemed our family from the pits of despair.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and there's one story. It was, I was in the kitchen. So remember when we stayed in Westwood, that house in Carker, Parkside, and that we had that massive tree outside. So it was one day, I think our dad was watching the rugby in the sitting room, and I came down from my room and I seen Danny in the bathroom and you were there, and just whatever way I was looking at Danny in the mirror, his tongue was just, I mean, it was like a balloon. His tongue was getting bigger and bigger, and I couldn't stop laughing. But you know what? I wasn't laughing because I thought it was stupid. I was so worried that all I could resort to was laughing. You know, and he had his tongue was just getting bigger, his jaw, like I was getting very worried, and you had to force his head forward so that he wouldn't choke on his tongue. I mean,
yeah, well, it was that day he actually called me into the bathroom. He was getting ready to go out.
oh,
And he called me and he said, look at my tongue. And as he was saying it, he was finding it hard to speak.
oh.
And all you could see was his tongue trubbing. So my first initial reaction was I started laughing because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
At first, because and his tongue just was getting bigger and bigger, and you could actually see it pulsating.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, Mum all kicked in, and I gave out to him what you have to take, and and then you and then Emma came in as well.
Yeah.
And you were looking, and you were laughing, and I don't know whether I think Emma started crying.
Okay.
And then obviously trying to hide it from your father.
Oh.
Because this was a thing, I guess, which I enabled Danny quite a bit because I hid things from his father.
Yeah.
In order so it would avoid his father getting onto him. So eventually it started kind of coming down. I didn't know what to actually do, but I thought he was going to choke.
Yeah.
That if his tongue kept getting bigger and swelling, and he would actually come to the point where he would start choking.
Yeah.
Which I tried to calm him down because he was starting to get. So I was trying to, but in the meantime, I was still really cross, and I didn't know what I was dealing with. Like I'd never dealt with anything like this. So I guess after a short while, it started kind of the pulsing stopped so much, but it was still kind of swollen. So, still he was going out anyway. He didn't care. He didn't care because I was saying you can't go out. You with this, like, but he did. He went out.
Yeah.
And obviously I rang him throughout the night, and when he would answer or text me, he said it's gone down.
Yeah.
But it took quite a while for it to go down. He was after taking, I think it was something like a horse tranquilizer, ketamine or something like this, that he was after taking, that he had a reaction to. And he was really blessed that night because it could have gone the opposite way, really.
That's right.
In all fairness. And then, because you and Emma were so young as well, and to be actually witness that as well, it was hard.
Yeah.
You know, because then when he left, then you were asking questions, and is he going to be all right? And
yeah,
to try and reassure you guys as well. And I guess, trying to reassure myself because I was so worried.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen that rest of that night. I thought I was going to get a call to say he was rushed into hospital or something with it, but thank God he wasn't, you know. Yeah, it was a scary but a funny time then because, like you said, you started laughing because it was nerves.
Yeah.
I laughed myself at first because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, and you look back at it now and we laugh because... Oh man.
It's like, I mean, we've been around Danny and we've seen drugs in our house, you know, like, because obviously he was taking drugs for quite a period of time during his teenage and young adult years, you know, and like even for you, I know you said that you hid a lot of stuff from Dad, but you're a mom, and no one knows the love of a mother like her children, and a mom is never going to not extend love, kindness, care for the child. Like, you're not going to desert your child. You gave birth to Danny. He was in your womb for the whole time of your pregnancy. So there's an intimate connection that a father doesn't understand. You know what I mean? So I understand why.
But with that mother's love, there's still that aspect with someone that's addicted or an alcoholic. They're very slight. They can, like, it's things you think you're doing to protect them, but in actual fact, you're enabling them as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very thin line. And a lot of the time, I think that's what happened with me as well, because I wasn't straightforward and honest with your dad about a lot of the things that happened and went on.
Sure.
And so that gave Danny a little bit more fuel, I guess, and control, I suppose.
Yeah, it's true. Like,
in order to do what he was wanting to do.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you know what's mad? Because when we were living in that house in Wexford, the one we were talking about, Danny stayed in a room with me, and in the room we had two doors on either side. It was a walk-in closet that led into the attic on both sides, and like
Yeah.
I'm a guy, which and what that means in English is I don't have a lot of clothes, and I didn't have any clothes when Danny was around because Danny was so skinny that he used to wear all my jumpers. So like I'd be like, Mom, I need more clothes, and you're like, what's wrong with you? You need more clothes? Loads of clothes. I'm like, I don't. And then I see Danny coming home and he's taking off just layers of clothing. I'm like,
Yeah.
so I used to, and this is funny. I used to have to hide my my jumpers so that I would have a jumper to wear to school or when I was going outside. But even there's one thing that you may not, I think you know, and I don't think Dad knows because Dad doesn't know a lot, unfortunately. You gave Danny a curfew. What was it? Was it 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock? Can't remember now. Where basically, if he wasn't in during that time, the doors were locked and that was it. Um, but then the backyard in Carker, he had a spare key to the gate, so he would come in the back gate, and obviously Roxy at the time, our dog, I've heard her bark once, and I couldn't stop laughing at her. So she's a very quiet dog. And every time
Yeah.
Danny would miss curfew, it wasn't a problem to him because he knew that his brother Jerry was going to be up in the room sleeping. So he used to get a ladder. Dad's ladders. They're like the wrestling ladders. They're like 50 feet high, right? And he used to climb up the window about 3 o'clock in the morning. All you'd hear would be dum dum dum. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? He's like, shh, Mom and Dad are in the other room. Open the door. So I used to have to creep downstairs at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning and open the door, and then lock it quietly again. It's a miracle that how you didn't even know because some of the floorboards in the kitchen, you stood on it, the whole house rattled.
You could hear.
So yeah, so that was one of my funny stories with that. But even another story, Mom, to I suppose to move on from that, we'll talk about that a bit more in a little bit. But I love Dad, and I'm not. It's not generic. I love everything about him. I love how he's straight to the point. He knows what he wants before he goes into a shop but there was one time when we were in Lanzarote about 2 or 3 years ago, when you're on holidays, they have all those shops on the strip where you can get souvenirs and hats and all that stuff. We were in there one day and Dad was pricing, I think it was the price of tobacco. And it was, we were in behind the counter and, hey, man, but Dad was talking to your man and he came up then and he looked at me and he said, I have iPad. You want iPad €80? I said, I've actually got a MacBook at home. And he looked at me, he goes, I wasn't talking to you at all. And Dad looked at him and that look, I said, well, I'm not talking to you either. Don't talk to him like that. And I remember that moment when I walked out of the shop, I felt like Conor McGregor. There was a confidence to know that my dad heard someone disrespect me. But then my dad, he just gave him the look, the James Bond villain look, and said, well, I'm not talking to you at all. Don't talk to him like that. You hear me? And he just walked out. It was just,
that's it.
and that's the way he is. He's very like that. And I remember when we were going on holidays to Lanzarote, obviously when you're going through airport security, you have to prepare your bags in a certain way. You're not allowed certain millimeters of aftershave. Me and you know that if there's one thing Dad loves, it's aftershave. So he puts in these 100 milliliters, 100 into the bag, and he gets stopped by the security and he has to do all the checks and all, and getting pure frustrated. I don't have drugs. He says, all the drugs that are going through the airport and they won't even let me take aftershave. It's just funny. It's funny just to see you interact sometimes because I know the way you are. You're a worrier. You like to have everything organized. Where he's just like, no, it'll be grand. It'll be all right. Stop worrying. It'll be all right. We'll get there. You know?
Yeah.
And
that's it.
Oh yeah, another story before we move on to having you share your story, Mom, is I remember it so well when Danny was in rehab or when he was in Bible school or even when David was in college and he would come home for the weekend. I used to get so jealous. Oh, I mean, talk about being riddled with bitterness towards someone because I used to love it. It was just me, Emma, you and Dad during the week. And Dado was in Crawford in college. Danny was down in Cork in Bible college. And when they would come home, I used to hate it because my room was no longer my room; it was their room. My mom and dad weren't just my dad and mom; they were theirs for the weekend. So you wanted to talk to them. So I was losing my time in a sense, you know. And I remember one time I
Yeah.
lost David and Danny. When they came home, they didn't used to be home together very often because obviously Danny would have commitments with the church at the weekend and Dado would be with his friends or whatever. But there was one weekend, and I decided that I had enough of the special treatment, is what I called it, right? And I said to you, you know, I had, you know, my mood when I'm not in the mood, I'm fed up, I'm annoyed. And I just got up and when I went to the bathroom, I said, "Ma'am, can I talk to you for a second?" And when you came out to the hallway, I said, "Can you close the door?" I said, "Mom, I'm so tired of it. It's been going on for months and months and months. I love you. You're my mom. I love spending time with you. But the favoritism has to stop." Now, and the cheek of me to say that to you was on another level. But and your response, and you don't realize this now, but your response preached the gospel to me in such a powerful way. You said this, "Jer, I'm your mom, and I love you the same way I love Danny, Dado, and Emma. But the problem with you now is you are getting so used to my love on a daily basis that when I express the love to Dado or Danny, who I haven't seen for some time, you feel like I don't love you, that my love is being taken from you, when you really said to me, my love is always with you." And to you, that probably meant nothing. You were just being a mom, and I was just being a absolute spoiled brat.
Yeah, you used to get very contrary at times
Oh, oh,
when the boys be home together or one by one, different times. You could get quite contrary and
yeah,
sulky for the least little thing.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I couldn't stand it. Don't get me wrong. I love Danny. I love Dado. I really do. But I was just so jealous of
Yeah.
losing yours and Dad's time. You know, like we'd sit down and we'd have tea and we'd talk. Whereas Dad, we kind of sit down and we watch the sports together. That's our thing, you know, or we watch a
Yeah.
documentary or something. I used to hate it. Oh gosh. There was times where I felt like I could physically strangle Danny or Dado just so they wouldn't have to come home. You know, or and it was funny because
Well,
Danny
Dad, you
used to
did.
laugh at it. Dado just didn't care, whereas I was just an insecure individual who didn't know how to be comfortable in a room with his family.
And look how the Lord has changed that all around, because there's no better feeling now when I have you all home, all in the same room and chatting and laughing, and it's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
You know.
Totally.
And there's no bitterness, it's just all for love and wanting to be there, and just what an amazing time we do have when we're all together.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I love the fact that we've just been able to reflect on stories, man, because they really help us to appreciate memories. You know, memories are quite important in our lives, you know, and
Absolutely.
this is the Hope Sessions podcast. You know that, but our listeners know it as well. And every guest I have on has a story. And I know you, and I'm forever learning about you when you recall stories that happen in your life, and you're, whether you like it or not, you're the first person I've ever loved. You're my mom, my best friend. You know me better than anyone in the world put together. But you have a story. I would like, ma'am, for you to share it with me and even our listeners for the next 5-10 minutes or however you feel, where you were born, what it was like growing up, and how you came to faith in Christ.
Okay. Well, I'm from a family of three. Myself, my sister, and brother. I was born in London.
Yeah.
And had a good life, great family life, brought up, never wanted for anything. I was the baby of the family, so I always got kind of what I wanted anyway.
Yeah.
I know, but Bridget and Stephen would have that to say anyway. But grew up in London, and my grandparents lived in Kildare. So when my grandmother died, my dad got the house, so we moved back to Ireland, to Kildare.
Yeah.
To look after my grandfather. So we sold the house in England, moved everything, and we basically went to live in Kildare. So I went to school in Kildare and all that. Grew up, normal family life, church, Catholic church, go Sunday, church every Sunday. School, just a normal teenager child things you do. Then I was around 14, I think, and my uncle's girlfriend got killed in a tragic accident while they were abroad on holidays.
Mm.
And my uncle was back living in London, and he was an alcoholic previously, and he had been off the drink since he was with his new fiance. But this accident led him back to the drink, and he wasn't in a good place. So my dad was speaking to him, so we decided we'd move back to England and look after him and care for him and try and get him back on the road to, recovery. And so we moved back to England, and I went to high school in England, hated it. Spent more days out than in, but really didn't like school over there. I had a lot of friends, but in school, school wasn't just for me. I'd rather be out doing something, working. So I went out and got a job. I worked in a restaurant, and then I went on to hairdressing, like helping out just as a trainee. We lived in England then, and we just we carried on. And let me see, where did we go then? Because I was back and forth from England to Ireland quite a bit. So anyway, in England then, I'd always been going out. I knew a lot of Irish people in England. My mother and father, they'd meet up with their friends who were Irish in the pub at the weekends, stuff like that. So I used to go out there too. A lot of Irish. It was like a little Irish community sort of thing, the pub was. So there is where I actually met your father. In the pub, playing pool and darts, and you just see each other and you start talking. So I met your dad there. We came chatting to each other quite a bit, and every weekend, and then he'd be saying, "You're coming in tomorrow night," so I'd go in and we'd meet up and we'd chat, and we actually got together. So and that was then. I was only with your dad, I suppose, maybe not even a year, and I fell pregnant with David.
Awesome.
So this bungalow, so excited, really just so excited to be able to have a child with this guy that I fell madly in love with. So we got a masonette, we got a place, and we lived in, and then David came, and life was good. I was a young proud mammy. I had my own mother and father were just so over the moon to have a grandchild. But as into when I was telling my father I was pregnant, because bear in mind I was only 16, and my dad wouldn't talk to me for 2 weeks. And many a time Dave would come around in the evening, he'd open the door, "How are you, Dave? Come on in." He'd talk to your dad, but he wouldn't talk to me.
Wow.
But that only lasted a short while, because as soon as David was born, he was just head over heels in love with him. I then went on and I had twins, Steve and Stephen, but unfortunately I lost them at 7 months. True, then I had Danny then a couple of years later, and then yourself and Emma. We had a good life in England. We always tried our best. Your dad was a hard worker. I'd be a stay-at-home mom, I guess, most of the time. Until then, I started working in the pubs, and I go work evenings, and Dad'd be at home with us. I actually ran a pub in London. I was the youngest licensee in London to run a pub, where you guys, we lived up above the pub for a while as well. So just normal school life, family life. I thought life was good, It was hard at times for young children, but hey, I was with the man I loved. We had a nice little family, happy days. My mum and dad decided to move back to Kildare, which broke my heart, because I was always with my mum and dad. You guys would see my mum and your nanny, granddad every single day, even in England, And it was my dad's wish to bring you guys back to Ireland, to live in Ireland. He wanted to see you. He used to call you his buds. So I suppose about nearly a year later, after they moved back, we moved back then. So we decided to, maybe a life in Ireland is better for the children, because England was like always on the go. There wasn't much, you know, it was always fast, fast, fast. So we upped and moved to Ireland into Kildare. Where a couple of months later, Grandad passed.
Yeah.
So glad we actually made it back to Kildare to see him for the last month of his life, you know. And
Yeah.
he's seen you guys over there.
Yeah.
So we got a place in Ireland, in Kildare. We got a house, and first of all, we lived in a mobile. We lived outside Nanny and Grandad's for a while, and then we got a house in the next village.
Yeah.
This is where then things started kind of going wrong for us, I guess. Well, not for us. Well, yes, for us as a family, I guess. After my dad passing, Grandad passing,
Yeah.
Danny was ever so close, as you all were. But it seemed Danny took it very, very hard.
Yeah.
He was so close, always out in the van, looking at stuff with Grandad, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And after his death, because it was sudden, you know, it shocked everyone.
Yeah.
But Danny took it bad, and it seemed from then Danny went in a downward spiral, if you like. I started finding aerosol cans under his pillow in his bed, like covered the duvet over his bed, and then you pull it back, and oh my goodness, there was aerosol cans everywhere in the bed, and all empty. And if you press the spray thing, would be gone because of where he's after been inhaling them.
Yeah.
So this I would ask about it, and he would, you know, muff it off or whatever, no, you know. And I think the village we lived in had a big part to play in with Danny also, because there was drugs involved in that village and a certain guy and stuff. And
Yeah.
Danny, like, even though Danny and David had hung out with the same guys,
Yeah.
Danny started drifting off to this other guy, they called it, like, because he was the one that would hold the drugs and I suppose the dealer, you know, and he'd have the little runners, under 18s, to run around for him.
Yeah.
And so Danny started veering off in that kind of direction, going down to his house and stuff like that. And it was becoming quite a worrying and, I don't know, a really scary time to think, here's my son, what he's doing. And yeah, I didn't know for sure, but yet I knew to a point there was stuff he was doing, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to, because no child or anything comes with a manual, and if they get into this sort of trouble or they go down this route, there's nothing there. And I've never dealt with anything like this before in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a tough time, and then different little things, and getting in fights, and I was go to school and wouldn't be in time, and all these different things were all adding up. And then there was one I remember, you were all involved in drama and stuff. There was a thing going on one day, and it was the village was alive, you know, the atmosphere around the village and everything, and everyone's kind of buzzing. And they stayed this really big sports car. Well, not big, it was low to the ground, but it had one of those car doors, you know, the doors opened up, and it was real sporty. And
Yeah.
so this car was driving around the village, and it would spin around, you know, flashy guy. Obviously, we all knew he was to do with the other fella,
Yeah.
the dealer of the town. And he started driving just right past our house, and he'd slow down.
Yeah.
And the first time you kind of wouldn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And then he'd turn around again. But also bearing in mind that day, Danny was he seemed like he was hiding. He was staying out of the street. So things were, and it turned, long story short, it turned out that Danny did all these guys money and stuff, you know.
That's right.
And that this was going down the drug route. And so worse fears came to true, like, you know. But anyway, we went through a lot of that, and I could tell some stories. I remember one night, I started praying at this point, you know. I kind of stopped going to church, and the Catholic Church, but I'd still pray at night when this started happening. I didn't know what was going on, and I prayed to God, and I'd be praying Our Fathers, Hail Marys, and but I needed to be doing, because I didn't know what was going on or how to deal with it. But I prayed that he would be safe, because I knew this wasn't a good place to be. And I remember one night I didn't have to go to the shop, and something was at me to go to the shop, so I let on I needed something. And now ye were all out playing, and David and Danny was off out wherever, and you and Emma were out in the town, in the village, playing with Jessica or whoever you were playing at the time. Something was playing on my heart to go to the shop, up the garage. And so I just said to your father, I need to go shop, I needed whatever. I didn't need anything, but I went up because I had this thing here telling me in my heart to go. And I went up, and Danny was there, and it ended up he was trying to chuck himself in under cars in the main road, because the garage is on the main road. And I actually got there in time to be able to jump on him and sit on him and hold him.
Wow.
And that night, I mean, I don't know, and now I know, obviously, that was God pulling at my heart, telling me, and I trusted what I heard. But only for that hearing that and trusting that instinct, as people would say, that I went up, because I didn't need anything in the shop, but I went up because I felt this strong urge I needed to go, and I went. And thank God I did, because it was quite a struggle that night. We ended up having to go to Bolton Glass police station. They sending him on to the hospital and seeing a psychiatrist, and then saying, like, he's not going to do it again. He's going to go home with you. So, it was fighting. It was really like, because he was under 18 at the time, it was so hard to try and get him the help he needed. I remember on numerous occasions I would ring different places, trying to get him in for under 18s for help. And I remember one time, yes, we'll see him. There's 3 months waiting list.
Wow.
Even see him to give him a consultation. I said, what am I meant to do in that 3 months waiting? I said, this child is trying to kill himself. He's trying this. He's on drugs. So I really felt like my head was hitting off a brick wall, because I would keep a lot of it into myself, I guess, and I would only tell your dad bare bits, or we're trying to get him help, because he would get so frustrated, and it ended up me and him arguing, or him getting on to Danny, and then I was trying to think of ye guys and ye having to listen to all this. So it was about trying to protect everyone, by keeping quiet in certain things. Like, there was many a time I had to, my shopping money, I would have to take my shopping money and pay off some debts for Danny. And yet still let on that I had money to. So I always would try to keep my freezer full, so there was always something for them days, because there was always someone knocking or texting me to tell me that my son owed them money, and if he didn't pay for it by a certain day, they were going to kill him. So I had this going on too, and then anytime Danny would be going out, I'd have people text me, oh, he's off his head, he's down here, he's punching, or so even when he would go out, I'd feel a little bit of release for ye to be some way calm. But then when he did go out, I used to get texts of people. So I was all over the place, and and I didn't know what I was going to be doing or how to get through this. And in the end, me and your father were arguing quite a bit, so I told your dad, go. And I asked him to leave, because I couldn't deal with him and deal with Danny at the same time. And I needed to give Danny my 100% concentration, focus on him, rather than, I felt at the time that your dad maybe was, he'd be getting on to Danny, or it'd be me and him arguing, and he'd be stopping me from trying to help Danny as much as I could. So I needed him out of the way in order for me to be able to concentrate fully on Danny. So your dad left for 3 months. Obviously he came back, praise God. But it was a tough time, and my head, it was just, I didn't know what was happening. Sometimes I go to sleep and I'd be like, Well, I would try to go to sleep. I say I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Me with sleep at that point wasn't really happening. I'd lie down and my mind would do 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one thing, it was another, and it was just so. And where to the fact where I started going bald. I had a bald patch from worry, from stress, from
Wow.
and it was such a lonely time as well, because in the village, small villages, a lot of people are quite close,
That's right.
and they tend to talk about.
Yeah.
So it was, when Danny would be fighting or anything like that, or something happened, it'd be Danny or Susie's fella there, oh, I see Danny lad there the other night, Susie, is he all right? But they weren't concerned. They were
Nosy.
looking for news, like. But so we went on, and in the end we actually, Danny got a flat down in the village, but we decided we were going to move to Wexford. Just needed a break, just needed a fresh start. I couldn't carry on, because when Dad came back then, we sorted things out, and
Yeah.
it was just tough. It was very tough, and it's tough on you guys. That didn't go unnoticed either, but I found it hard to deal with. Never mind you trying to deal with it, and I needed to be somewhat sane to be able to deal with you, to be able to comfort you and be your mum still at the same time. And so we moved to Wexford, and a short while later, Danny followed us as well.
Yeah.
And this is where his tongue blew up. But long story short, he went into seizure one day, and he went to the hospital. And I kept telling him, you need to get help. You need to go somewhere. Yeah. And then one day he came home. You know what, Mum? I don't need to go anymore. My friends told me they're going to be there for me if I ever need to talk 24/7. They're there. I went, yeah, right, whatever. This day he had the seizure, and he had a really bad seizure.
Yeah.
So he had to go into hospital. And they wouldn't let me stay that night. So I came home and I got the laptop out and I started searching. I searched everywhere, because at this point I was thinking of, what if, imagine a mom thinking this, but this is how desperate I was. If I got him into his room, I would get Dad to put boards up outside the window outside, and boards up across the door, and leave one loose at the bottom, so I could just sip in food to him, just so he couldn't get near anything. He would just have just a bare room, just his bed, and strip him of everything and let him go cold turkey, because I this is what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
Now this is a mom that, and through it all, I never forgot who he was. He was my son. He was my baby boy. At the end, like, I never lost sight that he was still my boy.
Yeah.
And somewhere in there, he was still there. It was just hidden. But anyway, these things came into my head. But anyway, the night he was in hospital, I came home and I started searching everywhere online, and something came up, tickling.
Yeah.
I thought, what? Okay, I looked, and I actually sent them an email. So I got that, and I told him the next day I was up there, look, I seen this place. And the email that they replied back, that he would have to ring. He would have to do this, which I knew really, but I was a mum. I was crying out. I didn't know, please help my son. And so when I told him this in the hospital, he went, yeah, okay. He said he would. So when he got out anyway that evening. And I got the number for him anyway. So he rang, and praise God, they gave him a day to go up for a consultation within a few days. Now that don't happen. Yeah. Anyone that rings Tiglin, you're waiting months maybe now. And he went up, had that. He met with a guy up there, and when he came home, he had to ring every day. He rang every day, because if he missed a day, his name would go on the board every day he rang. And if he missed a call one day, his name would go to the bottom of the list. So his name would go up each time for a bed. And when the bed came, within 3 days, I think it was, he got a call to go.
Wow.
This is, even the guys that worked there didn't even know how this was possible.
Yeah.
So he went up, he went in, and well, he's there. And so the first 2 weeks didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
And I think after the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you got a phone call.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, amazing. So then, but even when he was in, it was such a worry. It was, and you guys were happy, but you were missing him, and it was tough. It was tough on everyone. So anyway, we fast forward then a month, we went up to see him, and then he starts writing letters to you and me, and started talking. And I heard when I read about this Tiglin, when I was looking it up, that it was Christian. I didn't care. It could have been anyone. I didn't care. If you were going to help my son, that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
It was a Christian rehabilitation center, 16 months. Didn't bother me. It could have been anything. And so he went in anyway, like I said, but he starts writing letters to you guys and myself.
Yeah.
And he started talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys will say, he's mad, like.
That's right.
What's that place like?
Yeah.
So the further along he went, the further I knew he'd be coming home for weekends.
Yeah.
So therefore, I was like, I need to find a church, because I didn't know anything about born again.
Yeah.
I just knew Catholic and Protestants. I didn't know, to be quite honest, you know. So I, again, out the laptop, Christian churches in Wexford Town. So straight away popped up Wexford Christian Community Church. Okay, that'll do. Took the number, rang. And I spoke to Kathy Phillips, asked Kathy Phillips. So I said, you know, what I was doing. She says, come on up, it'd be lovely to meet you. I went up that following, it might have been a Saturday I rang her. I went up Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I walked in. And the minute I walked in that door, there was something just amazing.
Yeah.
The love, the welcome, the atmosphere. It was just, I want this. You know, it was strange.
Yeah.
That feeling of that the minute you walked in, this atmosphere you walked into, and it was so full of love and acceptance, and people so nice, and come on in, and people coming up, introducing themselves to me. Hi, my name is, what's your name? And how did you find this? And I tell them, you know, well, my son is in rehab. Oh, wow, praise God. And I'm thinking, praise God, he's in rehab.
Yeah, yeah.
They were so nice, and asked about, well, we would pray for him. We would keep him in prayer. What is his name? And that day during worship, because I didn't know what to expect, and everyone started singing, and so I stood up. And during worship, I just cried.
Yeah.
I just cried the river Nile.
Yeah.
And although I was crying, I didn't want it to end. I didn't want the singing to end. I wanted this to last, you know, never stop, this feeling, because I haven't had this feeling or sensed this feeling in years. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I stayed and listened to the preaching of Pastor Paul. And they came up to me then after service. We had tea, and then I said goodbye, and they said, we hope to see you again soon. And I was only going up to get for myself to, I suppose, have a connection with Danny when he come home at weekends.
Yeah.
Just to find out what it was about, so he wouldn't feel lost when he come home at weekends, and him going on about God and everything like that in church. And I didn't know what he was on about, so I wanted him to feel welcomed. I wanted him to not feel the odd one out. So this is why I was going to, so I'd had an idea what he was on about.
Yeah.
But that day I went to church, and I'm still going 12 years later.
Yeah.
Nearly 12 years later.
Yeah.
A few weeks after that, I gave my life to the Lord. Ever since that, I have a peace in my heart. That's just always have a peace in my heart. You know, I always try and kind of take it back a bit when I start worrying, and I shouldn't be still having peace over this, but I have peace about mostly everything. Maybe a little thing will creep in, but that peace is always there, you know, and the love and joy in my heart now that it was years that I ever felt that. And from that day I gave my life to the Lord. I've always had that. I've had that peace even through through difficult times, there's been that peace there. Sometimes you think, I shouldn't have peace like this if I'm going through this, but it's there. And you know what? I know God's got me. I know
That's
He
right.
won't put me through anything that I'm not able.
Yeah.
And it's about me having to trust Him and His timing for different things. I mean, God has had me on such an amazing journey,
Yeah.
tough journey,
Mm.
but I've came out better. I see the reason for it all now, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess training in for the Lord as well for different things, you know.
Yeah.
It's just been an amazing journey. It's been a tough journey. Um, and then to see how the Lord has worked in Danny. Wow, he was like the first day I went to see him, there was it was like a light around him.
Yeah.
He was shining, and I said, my goodness, I want that. Do you see that shine off him?
Yeah.
And then to see how he communicated with you and Emma, and that how he brought you to know God,
Yeah.
how you went on to, you know, and then Emma went on, you know, and it's like that song I will always play, it's just one touch from the King,
Yeah.
changes everything.
That's right.
I mean, come on, give me like, you know, and sometimes I would sit down some evenings, you know, you're tired, you're in from work, and you're like, wow. And then you just look how God has touched my family.
Yeah. That's right.
Danny through addiction,
Mm.
how we've all learned, you know, through that, and how we've all become to know God, the Lord through him,
Yeah.
through that addiction. And now he's passed it on to you, that look at you with Hope Sessions.
Yeah.
Gone on to do so well in work.
Yeah.
Met an amazing lady.
Yeah.
Look at Danny married to beautifully our beautiful grandson, Joshua. What a gift.
Yeah.
And there's Emma, how she's come to know Lord, how big her heart is, also like yours, that you always reach out. The ministry you're in, you do your Hope Sessions, you do youth ministry that I know you're so passionate about.
Yeah.
Emma with her youth ministry and how passionate she is. And like, I praise God every day for you guys.
Yeah.
And then I see David and how well he's doing in work.
Yeah.
But I do also know that in God's timing,
That's right.
David
And
will
Dad as
come
well.
to know the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, and I do believe that, and I do believe that for your father too. You know, sometimes it takes a bit longer, but I'm trusting in God.
That's
you
right.
know, and it's just, I always get so excited, just that one touch from the King, and boom,
Yeah.
you know, and what an amazing journey we've had. And to see the love and joy and happiness in all of you guys,
Yeah.
you know, you just want more, and you keep striving for the kingdom and for give God all the glory. And do you know what that is like for a mom to sit back and see that? I mean, I'm blown away every day. How could I not know God? How could I not trust him? Because I sit back and I see you guys and I'm just blown away, and all I can do is thank God. You know, I pray for you every day, and I know God has you in every aspect of your lives.
Yeah.
And I know he has a plan and a purpose for each and every one of you. And I'm so excited for each and every one of you. You know, Danny is married, grandson, hopefully another grandbaby soon.
Yeah.
And, you know, his job, getting the house, and then you have you and your Hope Sessions, your job is, you know, supervisor now and everything, a lovely girlfriend, and, you know, and then you have Emma, she's moved to Cork, she's a great job. She's going on to do a course now in HR, and God, where God has ye is amazing. And not forgetting where David, I know God, God is working in David's life also. And I, you know, where David is doing his graphic design now, and it's becoming, he's flat out with it, working. And praise God for it, you know.
Yeah.
And I see that, and I see God in the work of ye all. And it's just amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
all I could do is thank him every single day, you know. Yeah, so really that's my story.
Yeah. Mom, I love it. It's the epitome of going from hopelessness to life, you know, and
Absolutely.
I had a bunch of questions I wanted to ask you, but you didn't notice that you literally answered 10 out of 11 of them just by sharing your story. You
It's
know?
a question.
But there is one thing I want to ask you, man. Because you're a mom, I don't know what it's like to be a mom because I'm a guy. So, in light
Yeah. I
of
hope you're
Danny,
never a mom. Possibly a dad would be good.
yeah, but like, no, because the love of a mother is different. We know that, we understand that, like, and for our
Yeah.
listeners, mom, not necessarily speaking to moms. I think that's not the point. Speaking to moms, dads, brothers, sisters, work colleagues, friends, family. What advice would you give our listeners for them? Maybe they have a friend or a family member or someone going through a very difficult time with addiction. Um, because there's one thing I know about you: you are incredibly resilient, you are incredibly caring, and you have such a longevity about you with the love you display towards your kids, even when we have went wayward. So, what I suppose, what advice or encouragement would you give someone right now who's struggling because they have a son who was doing well and now, or a daughter, and they're just gone off the rail, as it seems?
Yeah, I think for me now would be, I would say, first and foremost, pray for them.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that are Christian, well, pray is not going to do anything. Believe me, prayer is
Mm,
such a powerful tool to have.
yeah.
It's, it's number one on my list for everything.
Yeah.
Um, I would also say, don't give up. Don't lose sight of the person they were before the addiction.
Yeah.
Because the minute you start losing sight of that person, you're just going to turn bitter. You're going to not want to know. You'll get fed up because it's not an easy road. It's not a short, quick fix. It's a long, long road, and never, never forget the person that is there. It's so important. Never lose sight of that person because, you know, remember, from experience with Danny, I never forgot. He was still my little boy. He was that little boy. I never forgot the love he had in his heart,
Yeah.
his character, his everything about him. It was so easy to forget that when he's in addiction and he's cussing you and he's whatever and doing everything wrong. It's so quick to turn your back and say, well, do you know what? You can't be bothered. Why will I? And kick them out. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Never lose sight. Be there, support, encourage. But like I said before, I did mention that I thought I enabled Danny quite a bit.
Mm.
It's very easy to get into and enable an addiction. But definitely be there, support, encourage.
Yeah.
Always be there for them. Never lose sight of who they are. Most important, pray for them.
Yeah. I actually think that out of all the podcast episodes I've had, not to discredit any of my previous guests, but I think what you said there is probably one of the most powerful things I've ever heard from a podcast, from a pulpit, from a sermon. It's to never lose sight of who the person is, even in the midst of addiction. Because isn't it true though? You see the outside, you see the drugs and all that, but you don't see. I suppose if you were to look a bit deeper, you would see like there's a like Danny didn't wake up one day and decide to become a drug addict. No one wakes up one day and decides to become an
No.
alcoholic. There's obviously turmoil, struggles, problems, difficulties, and a lot of times they don't see a way out of it, so they find a way to try and numb. The fact that you said
Yeah.
not losing sight of who they are, they're your son, daughter, friend, work colleague who is struggling. So it's the idea of not giving up, supporting them, encourage them, get around them, and I really
Absolutely.
that's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be my top advice because it's hard and don't ever think it's a quick fix and that we'll get this done. It's a long journey, it's a very long journey and it's very tiring. But you know what?
Yeah.
Keep it in prayer and, and just, you got to stay strong.
Yeah.
And like I said, don't lose sight of that person. Remember what they're like. You have them in your heart.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mum, you have been an incredible guest. Before I close, I think it's important to honor you. Not even on behalf of our family, but more importantly, on behalf of me. You are my best friend. You always have been, even at times when I haven't probably wanted it to be, or probably haven't showed it enough. You've supported me through my teenage years and even through my adult years. Even I'm talking to you all the time for advice, and you're always encouraging me, supporting me. And I really love that about you. I know I left home when I was 17, so I've been living away from home for about 7, 9 years now, I think it is. And it takes
Yeah, I know.
it takes for someone to leave home to really value the lessons learned at home. I think, and even on a humorous note, I think one of the most powerful things you have taught me is the power of ironing your clothes. I'm serious, man. Like, my friends and that know it here. Like, I don't, and I mean this, even if I'm on my day off, I will never leave my house without ironing my clothes.
Without your clothes. Yes, I know.
And even
You learned a good skill there, son. That's a life skill,
And it's funny.
I'm glad you took something away with you.
And even another thing, right? Dad knows this. But I want to say this on the podcast as well because it's important that I honor him as well. When I was living at home, when I finished school, before I decided to move to Cork and join ministry school down here, Dad always said that I could lie in or I could have a rest, but he always wanted me up by 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And 9 years later, I always make sure I'm up by 12 o'clock.
You see?
Now,
you did listen at some point.
Some days it's difficult because obviously, I love the basketball, I love American football, and a lot of those games don't end till 2 or 3 in the morning, or maybe sometimes 4. But I'll always set my alarm for 12 o'clock. It's not like, it's like if I wake up after 12, it's like I've let Dad down, or but it's just ingrained in me. So I think it's important to say that.
Stuck there.
Yeah, and even that
so
song.
We've done some parenting right,
Hey, come on now! You've taught me how to look well with my clothes. Dad taught me how to look well with waking up on time.
There you go.
You know what I mean? But even I suppose in closing, for our guest, you mentioned that song, ma'am, "Just One Touch from the King." I would encourage our listeners to listen to it. The artist is called Godfrey Bertel, and the song is "Just One Touch." Have a listen to it. It's a powerful song. It's very moving. And yeah,
absolutely,
ma'am, absolutely, you are incredible, and you know that already. But I'm going to say it again. I know that even when I asked you in the rapid fire round who your favorite son or favorite child is, I asked you that purposely because we all know that I'm your favorite child. And that's just.
Is that right now?
Yeah, I'm your favorite child, But yeah,
all the same. All the same.
Yeah, all the same. All the same in God's eyes, as they say. Oh yeah. Right. But definitely, guys, for those of you that have listened, this is the end of another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast with my beautiful, incredible, caring, supportive, encouraging mom, Susan. It feels weird for me to say Susan because I call her mom. If I call her Susan, she slaps me around the head because it's rude.
I kick her around the ear.
She's Mama Bear, and she's the only woman in the world or any person in the world who will ever get away with calling me Jerboy. It doesn't sound right when anyone else says it. It sounds right when my mom says it. But for those of you listening, guys, thank you for tuning in. This episode is special. I can't wait to listen back to it myself and be refreshed by all the incredible truths that my mom has shared. And even to close again, if you haven't heard or you forgot, maybe for you in your life, you've got friends or family who are struggling, maybe not even with addiction, but maybe just with life. My mom said it so powerfully. Don't forget who that person is, even in the midst of addiction, of struggles, of difficult times. Get around them, support them, pray for them. But guys, until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget that hope is to life as oxygen is to the body. Till next time, take care. Thank you again for tuning in to another week of the Hope Sessions podcast. I hope that it was a blessing and an encouragement to you. And if so, would you mind doing me a favor and leaving a review? It takes 2 minutes, but it greatly helps to spread the message about this podcast and to encourage people to check it out. But also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share it on your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media platforms you use. And don't forget, hope is to life as oxygen is to the body. Until next time, take care and God bless.